1 second. There we go. Oh, nearly. Okay, cool. Hey, welcome. Let me just get my ducks in a row there. Let's try that again. There we go. Now we're talking. Cool. Hey, welcome. To utilizing your authentic leadership voice for effective coaching. If you are here to enhance your coaching skills and strengthen your leadership voice, then you are in the right place, my friends. Looking forward to working with you just in the next few minutes for 1 hour. And I'm going to be asking you some questions. I'm going to be giving some wise counsel and advice, of course, but looking forward to your contributions. And we're going to show you how to do that in a second, by the way. We'll spend this hour looking at how we can communicate with greater authenticity. We're going to explore authenticity in relationship with leadership voice and also with coaching at the same time. We're also going to take a look at how understanding the DISC behavioral styles, yours and other people's, can help us become better coaches and can help us get the very best out of the people around us as well. First things first, can you hear me at the back? Let me know. Give me if there's Zoom reactions. Can we use those in webinars? Let's see. I'm going to find out, aren't we? Okay. And let me set up my attendees. There we go. There you go. And of course, you've got the chat available for any questions you've got for me in the next few minutes as well. So let me say hello, first of all. My name is Hamish McFarlane. I'm a leadership development facilitator for New Horizons. You'll thank you, raise hand. Excellent. Continue to use those Zoom reactions. You should have a host of Zoom reactions you can use in the next few minutes. I'm a certified virtual educator. I'm a certified DISC practitioner as well. And I come, my lived professional experience very much from political sphere, communications, coaching, and education as well. You can also see that I got a few cats somewhere in this virtual classroom. There are some cats, but they're mostly hanging around outside today. So not expecting too many meows or interruptions, but we'll see how that goes. Yes. So hey, good to meet you. All right. Let's begin with a question for you, and I'm looking for your answers in the Zoom chat, if that's okay with you. All right. So I'll put the question on the screen. Have a think, then let me know what you're thinking about. Ready, steady, go. Take a look for me. Lisa, thank you. Sarah, thank you. Adrian, thank you. Angelica, thank you. And thank you. Nathan, thank you. Chris, thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate that. Randy, thank you. Mary, thank you. You can see we've got, and again, we have a shared understanding, do we not, of what authentic can be in the workplace. We see truth, we see honesty, we see humanity as well. And of course, without trust, none of these things. We cannot coach, we cannot lead without trust. Genuine article, right? Awesome, liking all these things. True to your word, so a consistency there as well. Very cool. And when I think about that, you know, this idea of authenticity, it shouldn't be that hard, right? Shouldn't be that complicated. Just be your good honest self, like that. And so I'm liking what you gave me in the chat, and I thank you for it. At the same time, I want to recognize that there can be some difficulties. There can be some almost feeling like there's blurred lines with authenticity in a leadership or a coaching space, because we can confuse honesty with authenticity. And there are times where I've been called upon to be my authentic self as an expert or a consultant or an advisor, all those things. And I've done that a lot, certainly in the UK and the US. And I found that my sometimes very candid honesty can be seen as something quite brutal for people. So of course, if I'm the expert in all things, and I'm letting people know that the effect I can have, the effect I have on other people with that kind of feedback can be seen as very critical and also rather cold and uncaring as well. So problem with this kind of coaching or feedback or leadership, if we focus fully on honesty to the point of self-righteousness, then it turns into, well, if that's what we're doing, we're saying we're right and they're wrong. And people don't like to be wrong. They don't like to be criticized all the time. And it can weaken that relationship. Thinking, of course, if we're, again, a leader or a coach, and we're all we're really doing is pointing out where someone's going wrong. Now, it doesn't mean the facts are not on our side. We could be correct. We probably are correct. We're in that position for a reason, right? For that professional experience or expertise, right? But of course, if that's all we're leaning on, is that candid or perhaps that quite brutal, that very direct honesty, then why would they come to us for help and support? If the one response I get from someone I work for, or someone I'm looking to help me, guide me, if all they can do is point out all the things I'm doing wrong, I think I'm gonna get tired of that. I'm gonna get bruised by that. I'm gonna stop going to them. I'm gonna stop raising my hand. Right. So if you saw me as the mean presenter in this webinar, I'd get nothing in the chat. Right? But we'll test that out later on. Right. So I've had to be careful, of course, with my coaching style, my leadership style. And I've got to be very careful. I've got to check my authenticity and what that really means. Fortunately, let me catch up with the chat here. Like in the conversation there. I'll play it. Absolutely, Adrian. What a massive learning point and point that we don't want to lose sight of that, of course, in the next few minutes. What we've been through is going to inform and color the way that we show up, the way we use our leadership voice, and indeed the way that we hear other people as well. Well played. I'm so glad you raised that. That is all. You guys are awesome at this. Amazing, right? One person that's helped me in the business field when it comes to authenticity is a business writer called Mike Robbins, and he has put together an authenticity equation that certainly helps remind me in terms of whether I'm being too direct or I'm not focusing on that emotional connection with people. So let's put the equation on the screen. I want to see what you think of this. Not trying to sell it to you, just want to see if this might be a useful takeaway for our session today. Here we go. Mike Robbins tells us to truly be authentic, we have to eliminate the self-righteousness and replace it with vulnerability. Let me know if you find it easy or simple to be vulnerable in the workplace, to be vulnerable as a leader. Goodness me, I've struggled with that a few times in my long and sometimes illustrious career, I guess, right? What does that even mean, to be vulnerable? Again, as a leader, as a coach, we are vulnerable. We are taking a risk, right? We're showing as a cat showing its furry underbelly, right? But don't tickle it there, right? So it's an emotional risk, and there's some uncertainty as well. It's a recognition, of course, that we are not perfect, right? Nobody's perfect, and if we can do that, if we can lead to those better connections, if we can lead to those better relationships, we're going to get more out of our people, because then they take on that task, not as something that we're giving them to do, but something they recognize. They see the value in that, because of course we see the value in them as well, and they want to deserve that belief we have in them as well. But that can only come with that place of vulnerability, like that. Oh, Lisa, thank you. I'm happy to hear more openly guarded. And again, that this comes from our lived experience, our professional experience as well. So of course, I recognize we can see this in different ways. We can approach it in different ways as well. But Lisa, I love that contribution. Thank you. Right. So of course, we think, can we go into a new working relationship with complete trust, right? With complete openness, or have we been burned by that before? Are we going to be more careful? Are we, as Lisa says, are we going to be openly guarded like that? Interesting to think of the language around this, but to think, of course, how does it work for you? And how does it work with the relationships you have, again, in that leadership or in that coaching space as well? Fabulous. Okay, very cool. I like the equation. I'm going to say it's interesting to think of it that way and recognize that this is more than honesty. This is more than, or what adds up to meaning genuine and real and consistent. And so I know I've got to be careful. We've all got to be careful, really, about the effect we're having on the people around us as well. And of course, if we have that example in the chat there, if someone talks about their vulnerability, that can mean one word, that can mean one thing to them. It can mean something quite different to someone else as well. So this is, of course, this is more than just a game of buzzword bingo we're having in this session. We can dig into the meaning, like just as we should dig into the meaning when we build the relationships with other people. To what does that mean? What does that, is that comfortable? Is that safe? Is that a step out of your comfort zone? And so on, because we've all been through some stuff, and we can all approach this from a different way. But I've got to make sure that I'm being responsible, of course, for how I respond to my own feelings and emotions, especially in the professional arena as well. All right. Well, thanks to Mike Robbins, I'll carry on, and let's tie this now: authenticity to leadership. Here at New Horizons, we have a 2-day workshop, discovering your leadership voice. And when we get into this kind of content, I'm very quick to convey that everything starts with us, right? We can't have authentic relationships unless we're authentic people, and we can't act in accordance with our values and beliefs if we're unaware of what they are. Right. So it doesn't matter what the message is. It doesn't matter what the idea is. It doesn't even matter what the facts are, if people don't see us as credible and trustworthy and consistent as well. If I'm looking to help build capacity with my team, if I'm looking to help people get better at the work they do and the things that they're passionate and excited about, if I go in with all that good intent, I'm not going to get very far. If my team or the people, and of course, I could be looking to lead or coach people, of course, who report to me, but I could be coaching people across the organization. I have my own coaching business, coaching people all over the world, in fact, but I could also be coaching coworkers. I could be coaching and helping lead, of course, some senior managers as well, whoever it is. If they're not quite sure who I am, if they feel there's a gap between perhaps the way that I write to them and the way that I speak to them in person, or if they find me inconsistent, if they're not sure which Hamish they're going to get on any given day, I'm not going to have the effect that I need. They're not going to take it on, because we come back to guarded there, right? It would feel unsafe. They're not going to take the risk of learning something new with me if they don't trust me. Of course, if they don't feel that effect, that inspirational effect, of course, like so. So authenticity in leadership is essential. Of course it is, if we're looking to build those trust-based relationships and foster a following, foster commitment from the people around us, like that. And of course, if we don't get that support, we don't get stuff done. Right? if I can use that very technical word there, the stuff of business, the stuff of work, of course. So this is going to matter. Yeah, I want my message, I want my voice, I want my action to be aligned with who I am, like that. Okay, so I've got a question for you, and this question, of course, is based on, well, truth is, not everyone in the leadership space shows up in an authentic way. So I'd like you to think now of examples where you've seen a lack of authenticity. And I've got, well, 2 questions for you, really. on the screen there. Have a think, let me know in the chat. You guys have been rocking that chat so far. What difference does it make to the message? And also, what's the evidence? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeling about them that your takeaway is a lack of authenticity? Have a think. Let me know in the chat. I'm curious to see what you come up with here. Sunny, thank you. Mary, thank you. Linda, thank you. Sarah, thank you. Jess, thank you. Sarah, thank you. Lisa, thank you. Adrian, thank you. Don't let you guys, thank you. Can't do this without you, can I? So I appreciate that. Yeah. Lack of trust, like although I'm not going to paraphrase, but you're golden there in the chat. So you've been there, done that. You know what this feels like, right? I know, no team, no trust, no psychological safety, no willingness to take a risk. Why would we take a risk for this? Why would we bend over backwards? Why would we roll up our sleeves and get our fingernails dirty in this situation? I'm looking somewhere else, or I'm turning inward, or I'm looking to deflect. Right? This is a professional turnoff, frankly, if someone's behaving in this way, especially in that leadership role. They're there. We think they're there for a reason. They're placed there for a reason, and yet without trust, there's nothing. There's no effect. Well, Sean, thank you. You want to dig a little deeper and see what's going on here, but it's a diversion or a distraction like that. And absolutely, and I say people in leadership roles, they give them, well, like we all do in business, we give ourselves away in terms of when we show up, when we don't show up, what we say, what we don't say, who we choose to engage with, and who we seem to be trying to avoid as well. Just if this matters so much, and clearly it does, because without it, we have a lack of truth. We have a poor effect. We say this is invalid. We're not taking it on. We can't believe in this. We're not joining them on the other side of the fence. We don't believe in the vision, right? We don't trust their numbers. We don't trust their intent. If all of that's going on, this is clearly essential for effective leadership and, of course, for effective coaching as well. So why are so many people in that role not so good at this? It's because it's kind of tough to do it all the time like that. I always think on a good day, we can do this just fine because we can listen, we can speak, we can consider, and we are not overwhelmed by a heightened emotion. We can see things clearly, and we can choose to read people, not to manipulate them, but to understand them and to make a meaningful connection with them, because that's always going to be the most important thing before we get to those numbers, before we get to the task itself, like that. Well, Faith, thank you. Let me take a look there. Thank you. And we see that, as you say, a lack of trust, a lack of sense of, I want people to believe that they've got my back, right? That we're all in this for the right reasons, that we are operating and forgive me, but in good faith with each other as well. So a lack of authenticity, a failure of authenticity, we can't compel people to do their best work. We can't do it, right? There is compliance, but not compliance for someone to fulfill their potential, or we can't force someone to exceed our expectations, right? It's not easy to be authentic. That's true. And again, we can see different ways of seeing this as well, across generational boundaries and culturally as well. This can look different. Trust is trust, so as far as I'm concerned. But in terms of how we say it and how we read it, how we write it, that can look different in different organizations, different ages, different parts of the world as well. But again, if we're aiming for perfection here, it's going to be a pretty lonely and unsuccessful journey, of course, because sometimes we get this wrong because we're not perfect, right? Every leader, I think, every human being leader is not perfect, and of course that's okay, right? And anyone I'm looking to follow me, I know I have to write down a postcard and remind myself, or post it and say, I know they don't expect me to be perfect, but of course it rolls both ways, doesn't it? If I'm in a leadership role, I shouldn't expect my people to be perfect either. I shouldn't feel personally let down when they make a mistake, right? Especially when they're learning something new as well, even if it's something that I might have learned 30 years ago. Very easy, of course, for us to forget the journey we've taken as well, and the struggle. We solve problems every day. Right? And yet sometimes we question our own ability or the ability of other people to get to that same point, overcome that same barrier as well. Because we should give ourselves and each other a little more credit than we do sometimes, right? Looking at that last bullet there on the screen, well, that last paragraph on the screen, self-awareness generated from the outside in and from the inside out. Okay, so that's where we're moseying into now with our webinar. Thinking in terms, of course, I mean, this sounds an awful lot like emotional intelligence to me. Right? Let's take a look. Some reading for you. Okay, so without self-awareness, we cannot be authentic, right? Without understanding ourselves, we cannot understand others. Okay, and we've been there, done that, of course. Emotional intelligence, and again, which New Horizons has a 2-day workshop on that one, goes deep into the areas of self-awareness, self-management, and then extends into social awareness and motivation as well. And for me, it is a recognition that we are a product. We are individual products. How many billions of products, right? Of our own human lived experience. And again, that is why we all see the world. We see circumstances. We see a disagreement. We see a problem. We see a solution. We see enthusiasm. We hear a raised voice. We imagine a meeting or a brainstorming session. We can all see those things a little bit differently. Now, I believe in business that facts are facts and numbers are numbers, but it's not the only thing going on because we're human beings, right? And we can pride ourselves on thinking, of course, logically and working through a process and considering the evidence, and yet somehow, of course, we can still, again, come to a very different conclusion as well. And that's partly based on, of course, what we've been through and the events, good and bad, of course, that can color or inform the way we see individual circumstances, the way we can see something as a coincidence or a bit of luck or a product of our hard work or a product of the support we've received from the people around us as well. So we are, we're not toddlers here. We are grown-ups, and yet we do experience, of course, emotions and feelings all the time, and that could be the result of an email or a phone call or a facial expression we see in someone else, or just the way we start the day. Of course, if we start the day by stubbing our toe or slipping on something or whatever it is, or we start the day with a piece of good news, Who knows? And of course, recognizing our own sort of emotional trajectory on this to consider what's the momentum here? What's the direction of travel? If I have a negative emotion, if I experience some anxiety or uncertainty or anger or impatience, whatever it is, see it for what it is, to navigate through that and make sure to do my very best to ground myself, to ground ourselves, and make sure that we don't let that color the rest of our day like that. And of course, in the same way, if something positive is happening, or we get some good news, or we get the pat on the back, we get the positive affirmation, or whatever it is, again, how we can navigate through that. So that mixture of thinking, I don't want to rely on feedback from other people, but at the same time, I want to be able to read it for what it is, like that. And I want to make sure I can build myself up to build that resilience. So self-awareness, of course, to be able to understand where emotions are coming from, where these feelings are sourced, and of course, also how to navigate through it. So self-awareness and then self-management, like that. If this is self-knowledge, if this is understanding why we feel energized by some circumstances or delighted by connecting with some people, and why we might feel like we need to turn away from other types of personalities or other types of circumstances, if this is truly understanding what makes us tick, so then we can understand what makes other people tick and adapt our behavior accordingly, of course, right? If that's self-awareness, how do we actually become self-aware? How do we learn more about ourselves? And that's without a special slide, by the way. That's my next question for you. How have you done that? Or how would you go about doing it? What advice can you give me right now in terms of enhancing your self-awareness? How do you identify emotions? How do you know your strengths and trouble spots? What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Jessica, thank you. Chris, thank you. I like the word accept there. Yes. An act of bravery, right? 360 feedback sometimes. Oh, Jess, thank you. Don't, okay, you guys. Yeah. Again, not your first rodeo thinking about this. I of course, I knew that already. Self-eval. There are indeed formalized assessments. We might just be talking about that in the second half of our webinar, by the way. Just saying, right? I'm liking that qualifier there from Suni. Says feedback from those who will be honest with you, of course, and maybe, of course, feedback from other people who will be authentically honest, constructively honest, of course, as well. Is that you're right? Feedback is a gift. Well played. Reflection. Mindfulness. Yolanda, well played. And Sarah, I love that. That's one of my wife's favorite questions in which she's a director of a nonprofit. And that's a question she will ask at a meeting. She'll ask on one-to-ones as well. And folks, you see at the end of the chat there from Sarah, that point to say, you know, well, what can I do better as your boss, as your supervisor, as your leader, like that, or what's something I could stop doing that I'm doing? What's something that's getting in our way, like that? Or is it a case where a leader or a coach needs to step forward and step in, or is it a case that they need to step back? Is it a case that we need to get out of their way sometimes as well? So we do learn a lot when we create a safe, psychologically safe work environment, and we ask good questions and we listen to the answers as well. Something so powerful when the people around us feel safe enough that they can give that kind of feedback and raise their paw, raise their hand, or answer the questions. They feel safe enough to do it, but they also feel brave enough that they actually appreciate their own responsibility. They own the fact that they should, right? Of course, they can wait to be asked, or they just actually go ahead and step up and say the things they need to say as well. But they're not going to do that. They're unlikely. They're less likely to do it if we are not operating in or behaving or showing up in an authentic way. Liking all these things. Thank you. So I know you've given this some thought before. I love that work in the chat there. All of the things. I'm going to agree with all that. So we heard a mention of formalized assessment. One that we can do, and one that we are embracing here at New Horizons, is called the DISC assessment. So we're going to take a look at that here in our webinar, but in relation, of course, to what we're talking about today. All right, so DISC could cover all manner of ground, but we're going to look specifically in terms of leadership voice and in coaching as well. So let's make a move on that. I think this could help out. Yeah, okay. As advertised. I'm going to mention the DISC Platinum Rule for communication, and again, thinking in terms of, yeah, sure, self-awareness, self-management, but also social awareness, and reading myself and understanding others as well. Here's the Platinum Rule. And again, I want that on a Post-it note. I want to write down on the palm of my hand. Well, indeed, because I'm thinking there's all kinds of situations where I think I'm going to be fine with this on any given moment of the day with certain people, and then there are other people where I'm going to struggle, right? Because I'm with you on this one, by the way, Jess. I love it too. Obviously, the showing off a nice bright green slide right there, because maybe we think of this quite easily in terms of the people who work for us, the people who report to us. Maybe we're very careful and thoughtful and deliberate and strategic about making sure that when, we had that point about how can I be a better leader or manager, right? So of course, if I've got someone who's working for me and they're struggling with taking on some new skills or responsibilities, then I want to ask them, I want to know up front. I need to know when, not if they make a mistake, but as their coach, as their mentor, when, not if, but when they make a mistake, how can I support them? I want to know that before they make a mistake, and recognize there's going to be some mistakes because they're learning something new, because they're reaching for something that they couldn't reach before. They're on their tiptoes. They're going to fall off balance, professionally and intellectually speaking. So how do they want me to support them in that situation? Do they need a pat on the back? Do they need to talk it out? Do they need to get off their chest? Or because some people do, and some people don't, right? So again, for people who are working for me, I think I'm pretty solid with that. But of course, sometimes I got to think, well, what about the people above me as well? What about customers? What about my peers as well? Where are we with this space as well? So this should be true. The others are everyone. Of course they are. So again, direct reports, people who are looking to influence and persuade, if we have a coaching responsibility or a mentoring role as well, but also we can treat up as well as treat down. We can treat sideways, all the people, right? And of course, that means we end up being we should end up being very adaptable and flexible, but we are so consistent, because the consistency is one of thoughtfulness and one of listening and one of openness as well. And also willingness to change our own style, our own communication style, to adapt to other people. We don't lose our own style. We don't. We're stuck with it, frankly, as far as I'm concerned. But looking for how I can, turn the dial, I suppose, on my communications and the way I present myself as well. Let's take a closer look at DISC then. Okay. We're going to take a look at the 4 behavioral styles outlined by DISC. And again, looking at this in terms of leadership voice and also coaching as well. So one of the last things we'll look at today is in terms of these individual styles or preferences or personalities, thinking, well, as their coach. What does that mean in terms of giving feedback, for example, in terms of reassuring, in terms of building trust as well, because they look a little different. And again, just to put the headline out there, this is not about putting ourselves in boxes. This is about recognizing that we're just not the same in terms of the way we see things and the way that we deal with obstacles or the way we feel excited about things as well. So of course, I know there are people you work with and you get along with, and you've got that great rapport, and that is a blessing, and we're so grateful for that. But we can't afford just to sit in a silo and only work with certain people or only feel good about that relationship, right? So it doesn't take that much to foster better relationships with absolutely everybody you're working with, which is very cool, and also get better coaching outcomes as well. Okay, so got 4 to look at. In fact, let me show you the spread, because you can see it is a spectrum, right? I'm going to get my laser pointer out here, like I'm trying to sell you a timeshare or something. Here we go. All right, so we've got the D, the I, the S, and the C, like that. So D for dominant, I for influencing, S for steady, and C for conscientious, like that. And we could, if we ran the numbers on this, we would see some of these styles show up more at senior levels of management and executive levels as well. I'll leave you to guess which is which on that one. But there isn't one style here, or there's no one combination of style that's the best for coaching, or that's the best for a leadership voice. Not at all. This again is about understanding ourselves and understanding the preferences and styles of other people as well. So in that moment, we can be thoughtful, we can adapt as well, because we want to treat them as they would wish to be treated, because you get better result that way. It's the whole thing, right? So we'll take a look at each one, right? D, I, S, and C, like that. We'll look at the good news. We'll look at the potential trouble spots as well. Again, there's no letter that wins a gold medal here. And as we look at this, I'm going to again be thinking now, please, inwardly, in terms of does this sound like you, right? Is it just a lock, right? And if not, does it sound like someone you work with, right? I'm guessing, just gonna stick my neck out here and guess that you know several people, many people probably from each of these groups, of course. And it's interesting to see where we sit. And it could be a blend, of course. Most people tend to, no one's like really 100% I, for example, or 100% C. We tend to be blends. But to see kind of where we sit and also where they sit as well. And of course, that's in terms of the people you're coaching, people you're managing, but also your own manager, your own director, for example. All righty. Here's the Ds. I had to start with the dominant, right? It's the whole thing. Yeah. Otherwise, they get upset. What do they want? They want to get it done. They want results. They want outcomes. And they may appear to be kind of in a hurry, right? Magical thing about the dominant style, they work best under pressure. We cannot say that necessarily for other people, right? Because of that desire, because of that competitiveness, they are most likely wanting to take charge. They are competitive. They want to win. They get things done. They're less afraid of taking risks as well. Sometimes they're gonna see an obstacle. They're gonna think, well, how do I get around that? How do I get over it? How do I get under it? Maybe how do I just smash my way through it? Like that. We can see what's hard for them, though, right? They may not want to follow the rules. They may not want to go through the same thing again and again and again. So they could get bored. And diplomacy can be something that's kind of tough for them, right? And of course, they may be very effective in a speaking role, leadership role, because they have the energy, they have the juice as well. But that might be overwhelming for other people. And we want everyone, of course, to feel safe and brave in that environment. So again, if I know a coach who has a dominant style, that could work very effectively for some people they're coaching, but not for everybody, right? Okay. Let's think right now then, the D's, in terms of coaching, right? Just think of how it's going to help, how that might interact with the styles. And we're going to see, of course, all the styles as we go through our 4 today, and also where there might be concerns. My first question for you is, even without looking at the rest of them, does this sound like you? Let me know in the chat. I'll put those back on the screen. All right, are you a dominant style? You can change your mind later on, by the way, if you want to. I'll take a nope. Yes. And do you know someone? Does this remind you of someone you work with, or maybe someone, friends and family as well? Just thank you. Interesting. And again, when we look at these 4, there's not a bad one in there. This is about, again, our self-awareness and the effect we have on other people as well. Chris, thank you. Angelica, thank you. Interesting. Okay. Let's roll through the rest of these. Let's take a look. A hybrid, Sean, absolutely right. And when we take a look at the, 1 second. There we go. We can see we often are going to show up in a blended way. And what's, I think, really fascinating for me and very instructive about DISC, and again, we are definitely embracing DISC and New Horizons as a way to help, again, in terms of work relationships, leadership, influence and persuasion, communications, all of the things that you have to do at work. We can see that most people do show up as a blend of things. But what's, I think, most interesting about this is that unless you're in just the perfect job for your personality, there's a very good chance that you may be, for example, I could sit here on the very analytical side because I kind of do, right? As it turns out. And that can be very useful in terms of putting materials together for workshops and webinars. I think analytical will do it. That'll help me out, of course, but maybe I need to sell this webinar. Maybe I need to persuade someone that we're going to cover this content, or in a workshop environment, I got to be persuasive as well. So of course, I'm going to have to do some jumping around on here. And this works. And again, think of your own comfort level. Here's my comfort level. Analysis, my entire life. That's what I'm interested in. Like that. So of course, it doesn't mean I'm stuck. I have had to be very assertive. I've come from politics. I've had to be very persuasive. I've had to work as part of a team, be supportive as well. But what this tells us, what it helps us see, is it takes energy to move from that natural preference to the one. So we're not trapped in our own little triangle, our own piece of the cheesecake, piece of the pie here. But important to consider, if we are expending a lot of personality energy to, if I'm the analytical person, I need to be very persuasive, whatever it is. If I'm expending all that energy, is it working? Right? Am I persuading? Because if I am, maybe it's worth that investment. If it's not working, I should do something else. But even if it is working, if we spend a lot of our time at work not in our comfort zone, for example, with me with the C, if I'm having to spend most of my time over here in a competitive, fast-moving workplace, I can do it. But I don't think I can do it forever. Unless, of course, I think about how do I maintain that energy level, maybe after work, for example. Is it a change to routine that you want? Do we need to schedule meetings at different times so I can build that energy back up? Do I need a quiet space by myself where I'm not talking to people, for example? Whatever it is. Right. So again, this will absolutely, as Sean makes the point, it's going to a hybrid model that most of us are going to be a blend of 1 or 2 of these things. And I'm sure you have had to demonstrate behaviors for everywhere on that circle. But some things feel very natural and very easy, and some things can feel a little uncomfortable, or they just take a lot of energy. They can be exhausting as well. So understanding our own energy flow with this and how we can look after our energy, and also a reality check to see, is this worthwhile, can make a big difference in terms of our outcomes as a coach, as a leader, as a team member even as well. Okay, so we did the D's. Here's I. Nope. Sorry. That was a Zoom fail on my side. Sorry about that. There's the eyes. Good old influencers. Having like a TikTok Instagram flashback right here. They love energy, especially spoken energy. They want to have a conversation about this, right? And they tend to use the power of persuasion and influence to get people more excited about their ideas than they are, right? Tend to be thinking positive. And again, think of this in terms of your written communication as well. Think about the way you might pick up the phone or meet someone in a meeting as well. Chris, thank you. Well played indeed. Now, let's see any self-identified influencers right there, but also think about people you work with as well. You get an email from someone for the first time. How do they introduce themselves? How, do they get to the point, straight to the point? Are they looking to create a sense of energy or fun? Right? Think of the emojis or the lack of the emojis as well. That can often be a bit of a telltale in terms of personality, of course. I like my influencers because they think fast. They think on their feet as well, and they're dreamers. Anything can happen. Full of ideas, impulsive, like that. Promoters, right? Some issues though on the right hand side, right? Ilan, you got to lean. A nice one. A friend of mine, a journalist in Scotland where I grew up, and he is the eye. So he loves the phone calls, loves the conversations, and he dreams big. He has visions. And my goodness me, he can persuade us about anything and make it sound fantastic. But also a very successful journalist, very successful father with his kids, and all the things are working for him. But I also know, if let's see, Scotland is 6 hours ahead. If I was to call him up this evening here in Nashville, Tennessee, and say it's 2 or 3 in the morning his time, he's still at work because he messed up a deadline, because even at the ripe old age of whatever we both are, hasn't quite cracked the ability to keep to that timetable. He gets carried away. Sometimes a little impulsive. Sometimes makes promises that maybe he shouldn't. Like that. So again, firmly in the I style. My dear, I'll have to write him a letter of apology right after this with my journalist. But we can see that we need our influencing styles on our team, right? We'll feel an absence if they're not there, but can be hard to bring them back in sometimes. And consider how you would coach someone with this style. Think of how you would coach someone with a dominant style as well. Interesting to think of your own preference, but again, what's the interaction between you and them, right? Again, where can this be to our, again, some people you just got that great rapport with. Doesn't mean you're the same style. This means the combination is good, like that, right? But also, what's the interaction like? But also, what about the areas of concern as well? And is my D style going to try and roll over me? Are they going to try and dominate, right? Is the I style going to get carried away and forget about the fine print as well? John, thank you. And to be thoughtful about this right now, to be not 100% sure, that's a great place to be for a webinar like this, by the way. If we're thinking about it, again, moments of uncertainty, that just means you're processing, right? So I welcome that. I welcome not having 100% certainty on these things. Lauren, thank you. Yes, well played. All right, we got 2 more, right? Let's take a look. Here's our we need our steadies. Yes, we do. What do they want? They want us to get along, right? They want good relationships. Like that. They are people. They are loyal, right? They are team players. You got a team, you need S on your team. You need people to be able to even if they're not, S style, to take on the steady style, like that. Great listeners, very friendly. I bet they have a lot of friends because they're working at this. They're building, they need that network. Right? This is success to them, is that network of people around them. We're getting on just fine, right? They are good coordinators. They are excellent cooperators as well. And they have a natural ability to gain trust. And they take that very seriously as well. Right? This is a bit, they're interested in the worthy cause. Like, Sean, thank you. And me neither, by the way. but gotta have them. Gotta have them. Goodness me. Oh, Donald, well played. You got an S&I. Very cool. You can see, of course, my friends, you can see this is a potential issue, potential source of discordance and difficulty with the D's, for example, because the D's are out there to win, and the S's, it's like, oh, why does this have to be a competition? And why does this have to be a zero-sum game like that? We want everybody to win like that. So they don't like competition because somebody is going to lose. And that is not a good feeling. They're going to lean away from that. Right. So of course, if I frame my coaching session as a way to win, as a way to dominate, as a way to be number one with my steady style coachee, that'd be kind of ignorant of me, right? To do that, because that's not that, and of course that's just not how it's going to play for them. That's kind of a negative effect like that. And where's our trust then? Because I'm not speaking their language anymore. Not at all. Slow making big decisions, dislikes change. Now, a lot of people, of course, don't like change. I don't like change either, frankly. But if we're strong on the steady style, it is about steadiness, right? It's about keeping things the same. And so they're going to struggle potentially, right? If without that self-awareness in times of change, but they're also going to struggle to disagree as well. So what we can find, of course, we've got to be careful with this steady style if we're coaching them, because they may be hating it, but they might not tell us, right? So it has to feel safe for them. It has to feel safe so they can speak up, because we need to hear what they're thinking beyond just wanting things to be kind of calm, beyond the equilibrium, because they will need to change. If we're coaching them, there has to be some change, because there has to be development and getting better. We don't coach someone to be exactly the same. There's no point in that. Of course not. So, actually, Daniel, thank you. Again, consider the strengths, areas of concern, the interaction, again, between us and them in coaching, like that. We've got one more, which, of course, is the best one. I'm kidding. But it's my one, in case you're wondering. Let's take a look at this. Take a look at the C's. They are conscientious. What do we want? We want accuracy. What do we not want? We don't want to make a mistake like that. So again, thinking of change, thinking of a fast-paced change. Our C's digging into those numbers and facts, and they're saying, hold on, they're pulling us back from the brink. So that could be a great advantage. Of course it could, but it can also be a serious problem as well. Right. So sometimes they're gonna need a nudge. I've needed a few nudges in my life to move on, try something new like that. But also I can be relied upon to be organized, to be prepared, and to be thoughtful, and to keep my promises as well. Right? What does the C style not like? What does the C style find difficult? Sometimes working with others, which is a shame, right? And also they can struggle with ambiguity as well. If they're not sure, how do we respond to something that is uncertain? Do we raise a hand? Do we dig into it? Do we lean away as well? Does that create more problems as well? So if we're looking to John, that's a good, I suppose depends what the chaos is. If the chaos is like a tool shed and I've got to organize everything, you're right, that'd be fun. Or the kids' laundry, I can organize that. You're right. Are there people though? The chaos of people talking at the same time, that can be a struggle. Yes. Oh, is it a good question? I'll let Brandon take that one on in about 3 minutes, by the way, because he'll be closing out today. I do believe that they'll be emailing something to you, absolutely, after the webinar. Yes. And of course, we get into this in a very significant way we are launching a 2-day DISC workshop in case this is something that could help you out. Now, let's finish off today. Just we barely got started, just a few minutes with this, of course, in our webinar. Let's consider, again, hard takeaways. We thought about self-awareness and self-management, and of course, self-identification of our DISC style. What about when we are coaching that person? You're coaching the D, you're coaching the I, and so on. Let's finish off just considering some things that we can take away. Coaching the D, get to the point. And in terms of because there's going to be something that they need to work, nothing they need to fix or make a change on like that. Present it as a challenge, right? Holding the medal out for them, right? This is an opportunity. This is a way to get better, like that. And don't get too fluffy about it. Focus on the facts, because focusing on the feelings is going to feel like a waste of time for them. And we're not there to waste their time. We're here to help them get better, of course. Also, ask them how they could do this. It's like, here's where we need to be, right? Here's where you are, here's where you need to be. How do you want to get there? Like that. Because I bet they've got some pretty energetic and enthusiastic ideas as well. They want to know what it does, when it's going to happen, and how much it's going to cost. And of course, in coaching, that could be the cost of doing some on-the-job learning or self-evaluation, whatever it is. If you're asking them to do a 360 feedback or Johari window, whatever it is, we must be clear about what the bottom line is. Because if they don't know what the result could deliver for them, they're going to move on to something else like that. Here's the eyes. One thing coaching the eyes, I'm going to make sure that I'm writing down a note of what we've agreed, and I'm going to send it to them so they can be clear on that, like that. But again, what do they want? What do they care about? It's about status and also about visibility as well. So they come to this with enthusiasm and energy. We are going to want to mirror that as well. This should feel, if we can, let's make coaching a little bit fun as well. D's less interested in that. C's not interested really at all. There's the fun level. Need to provide something like that, right? So be enthusiastic and brainstorming, collaborative, fun stuff like that. Here's the S's. Got to make some time for the conversation. And we have to make sure this feels safe, because if this does not feel safe, if this feels risky, they're not going to open up, right? I mean, they're still going to talk to you, but they may not be talking about the things that are their heaviest on their mind, because that's just not their natural state like that. So this should feel safe and brave for them. Careful with our questions, thoughtful with our questions, and of course, very deliberate with our active listening as well. Give them the time to open up like that. What if you were coaching someone like me? Terrible business that, right? I want to know what the process. I want to know what the results are going to be as well. And I want to show off my expertise as a C, because that's how I'm measuring value as well. And I want to know this is going to work logically. And I want to know that we're following a system as well. Hey, thank you. Now, I promised Brandon a minute, so I'm going to turn you back over to him, but I'm also going to say thank you for your time today. I hope that has whet your appetite for DISC, of course, but thank you for your contributions, my friends. I appreciate that. I absolutely could not do any of this webinar without you, so thank you for your time today. Brandon, over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Hamish. If we can all just give Hamish a round of applause as a reaction or a ta-da or whatever you may want to in terms of showing him your appreciation. We just want to thank you so much, Hamish, for this past hour, being able to hear from you and gain tons of insights on what we can do to be able to be better coaches. Just to answer that real fast question about what's going to be sent out afterwards, you will get an email tomorrow with some different next steps of, hey, if you're interested in learning more this is what you could do in terms of courses that we offer, different things like that. Now, within a few weeks, we will have this webinar available on our New Horizons library and on our YouTube channel, that you can rewatch it multiple times and go back through it and continue to study this. So you will have access to this. Now, once you leave the webinar today, you'll receive a 1-question survey asking you, would you like to continue the conversation? And what that simply means is if you're like, you know what, this has been a great hour, but I'm like, you know what, I want to learn more about coaching. I want to learn more about DISC. I want to continue to learn more. Say yes to that question. And we'll then be able to get you connected with the right people to discuss how we can support you and your company in your own development and your company's development on a larger scale. So say yes on that question, and we'll get you connected to the right people. As always, you are welcome to follow us on LinkedIn. There's a QR code right there to be able to get you connected to our LinkedIn profile, and you'll be able to continue to get updates and things that are going on within New Horizons. Once again, we just want to thank you all so much for coming today, and we will see you again soon, hopefully. Thank you so much. Bye now.